Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're cracking open the playbook on how truly transformative technologies, and right now, that's AI, actually make it from, the lab into the corporate mainstream.
And you've shared a really powerful set of sources with us. We've got Geoffrey Moore's foundational stuff, Crossing the Chasm, Zone to Win, and then all this recent data on AI implementation.
So our mission today is to sort of synthesize all of that. We want to see how these, decades-old strategies for tech adoption just perfectly explain the challenges modern AI is facing right now.
Exactly. The question isn't if AI is being adopted. I think we're past that. That's
Yeah.
why so many companies are just stuck,
Right.
stuck in what you could call pilot purgatory instead of getting to true transformative scale.
Right, that's the deep dive into the chasm itself, that gap between the early experiments and real widespread business change.
And we have to be clear about the stakes here.
Yeah.
For you, the listener, you're seeing broad AI adoption. Lots of people are touching it, but it is incredibly shallow in most companies.
That gap, that chasm, it's still there.
It's stubbornly there, and we need to figure out why. What are the unseen barriers?
Okay, so let's start with the guy who literally wrote the book on this, Geoffrey Moore. His background is almost as important as the ideas themselves. He wasn't some business school guru.
Not even close. He was an English professor.
An English professor with a PhD in medieval English literature, of all things.
Right. And he had that great line about how that background was, valuable in high tech, as you can imagine.
I love that. It sounds like he saw that strategy is strategy, whether it's in an epic poem or in a software marketing plan.
Well, his first pivot was kind of out of necessity. He moved back to California in the 80s, couldn't find an academic job, so he landed a gig at a software company.
Started in training, then sales and marketing.
But the real pivot, the second one, was when he was around 40 and went into consulting at Regis McKenna.
And that's where the PhD in literature suddenly clicked into place.
It really did. He realized that analyzing these strategies for living in something like the Fairy Queen gave him this unique lens on how to position disruptive tech.
He saw the market structure, not just the product features.
Exactly. And that's when he noticed the pattern. At Regis McKenna, he'd see these companies get this huge early success. Amazing media coverage, sales are through the roof.
And then suddenly, a lull.
A terrifying lull. Sales would just drop off a cliff right when they were staffing up to scale. It made no sense.
And that lull, that was the chasm.
That's it. That gap between the early enthusiasts and the mainstream pragmatic market, it led him to formalize the whole technology adoption life cycle. The innovators, early adopters.
The visionaries, as he called them. That's about, what, 13.5%?
Right. And then comes the big chunk, the early majority, the pragmatists, 34%. Then the late majority, and finally the laggards. The chasm is that huge gap right between the visionaries and the pragmatists.
So why is that gap so hard to cross? If the visionaries proved it works, why wouldn't the pragmatists just jump on board?
It's all psychological. The visionaries, they want the future. They buy into your dream. They'll tolerate bugs. They'll tolerate an incomplete product because they want that competitive edge.
They're risk takers.
Totally. But pragmatists are the opposite. They're playing a herd strategy. They are fundamentally risk-averse. They will not adopt something unless they see it's a proven, complete solution being used by people just like them.
And crucially, they don't see the visionaries as people like them.
No, they see them as loose cannons.
So your first customers, your biggest fans, actually repel the next group of customers you desperately need.
That's the trap. So the whole strategy has to shift. You have to find a way to get a little group of pragmatists to start the herd moving.
And to do that, you have to target a really tight niche, the beachhead.
Yes. And it has to be, as Moore puts it, big enough to matter, small enough to lead, and a good fit with your crown jewels. You need a group of customers who all have the same problem, who all talk to each other.
So that word of mouth can build inside that one small segment.
And inside that niche, you have to find one specific type of customer, the pragmatist in pain.
Okay, that's the leverage point.
It's everything. This person has to be so afraid of their current problem that they're actually more afraid of that than they are of your new, unproven, risky technology.
That duress forces them to act. The Documentum example from the sources is perfect. They went after pharma company.
Right, whose patent life was just getting eaten away by bad document management. They were losing millions a day.
$1 to $2 million a day. That's the kind of pain that makes you take a risk on new software.
It's not about the software, it's about the pain. That's the compelling reason to buy. And it's also why Moore has that crucial warning. Never, ever discount your price. before you've crossed the chasm.
That feels counterintuitive. Wouldn't a lower price make a risky decision easier?
For a pragmatist, it does the opposite. Discounting just screams risk. It tells them you're not confident in your own value.
So you price against the $2 million a day problem, not the cost of your code.
You have to. If you solve acute pain, you have to charge for it.
Okay. So let's take those fundamentals and fast forward to today's AI landscape. I mean, based on the data you pulled, where are we in that life cycle?
The data is pretty clear that AI has started crossing the chasm in a big way. BCG's numbers say something like 72% of knowledge workers are using AI regularly.
And McKinsey found 78% of organizations used it in at least one function in 2024. That's a huge jump.
It is. The conversation has completely shifted from, will this work, to how do we get value from this?
But the adoption is really uneven. You called it a swarm of adoption curves.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Some use cases are just sprinting across, they're in the mainstream. Others are still stuck way back in the early adopter phase.
So what makes one use case sprint while another one lags?
It seemed to come down to four things. First, just pure economic incentive. High ROI stuff like customer support bots that save a ton of money. They soar.
Makes sense. Second is probably usability.
For sure. Conversational AI is easy. Anyone can use it. But those complex advanced analytics platforms, they require a ton of training, custom engineering. They're lagging.
Simple interface, faster adoption. What's the third factor?
Complexity of integration. Things that just need an app or a cloud API, like image generation, they took off like a rocket.
Yeah.
Things that need complex hardware, like advanced robotics, much, much slower.
And the fourth is social acceptance.
Yeah, and that can be the biggest hurdle. AI art is pretty much fine. AI and law enforcement surveillance, that runs into a wall of ethical and social resistance, especially in the West.
Okay, so this leads to this huge paradox we're seeing in companies right now. We have habitual usage, but not uniform integration.
That's it exactly. Adoption is broad. Individuals are using it all the time to draft an email or whatever, but it's so shallow. Most companies are not using AI in a deep, systemic, transformative way.
And that points to the real barrier. It's not the tech. It's the mental model, the billion-dollar paradox.
Right. Companies are spending hundreds of millions on AI tools, on training, and they're measuring activity, how many licenses, how many training hours, and they're mistaking that activity for actual progress.
Because 95% of their people are stuck in the wrong mental model. They see AI as a fancy chatbot.
Exactly. Let's just contrast the two mindsets, because this is the whole game.
Yeah.
First, you have the chatbot mindset. The user thinks, this is a smart search engine, a writing assistant.
So their behavior is asking it a question. Write me an email.
And the impact is, fine, you save 3 minutes on that task. The result is AI is just one more tool you consult. It's an addition to your old process.
But wait, if you save 3 minutes on every single email, isn't that a big efficiency win? Why is that a paradox?
It's a paradox because that small incremental win blinds you to the massive transformation that's possible. You're just optimizing the old way of doing things. You're being a little bit faster at the wrong thing.
Okay, so what's the alternative? The teammate mindset.
This is a completely different world. The user believes AI is programmable reasoning. It's an engine. So their behavior isn't asking a question, it's building a system, a workflow.
To handle a whole category of work.
Right. The impact isn't saving 3 minutes. It's saving 6 hours a week by completely eliminating entire reports or data analysis steps. The AI becomes the process.
So it's not about writing the report 10% faster. It's about never having to write the report again.
That's the transformation. And is why traditional training fails so miserably.
Because it's all about prompt engineering.
Which just makes you a better chatbot user. It reinforces the flawed model. You're improving your efficiency inside the cage instead of breaking out of it. Like I said before, you're polishing the bronze instead of building a rocket.
So if the old way linear training optional incentive doesn't work, what does? The sources say you need to design shocks that shatter the old mental model.
It has to be aggressive. A total shift from slow rollout to systemic rapid change. The playbook for this has 5 core principles.
Okay, let's go through them. Number 1, leadership demonstrates first, publicly. So it's not enough for the CEO to just send a memo.
A memo is meaningless. If the CEO's own work doesn't change, no one else will believe they have to change theirs. The execs have to actually rebuild their own core processes.
Like the board prep example, taking it from 6 hours down to 90 minutes.
And then talking about it publicly. That's what sets the new standard. It moves from a recommendation to, this is just how we operate now.
Okay, principle 2, create impossible moments. This is the shock therapy part.
This is maybe the most powerful tool. You literally take someone's recent work, a project plan, a report that took them all day, and you have an expert rebuild it with an AI workflow right in front of them in, say, 90 seconds.
That would be jarring.
It shatters their ceiling of believability. They can't go back to thinking AI is just a word processor after seeing that. Their whole mental model is broken right there.
Okay, number 3 feels a bit radical. Transform roles, not individuals.
This is critical. If you just rely on volunteers, you get these little pockets of excellence, but the rest of the company just writes them off as weirdos.
The outliers.
Right. The playbook says you target 5 to 7 key high-leverage roles, your marketers, your analysts, your architects, and you transform everyone in those roles at the same time.
That gives you critical mass. 20–30% of the workforce all moving together.
Exactly. And that critical mass lets you do the fourth thing, change performance standards.
Because if AI is optional, people will wait and see.
They'll hedge. They'll wait for the initiative to fail like all the others. So you have to set new standards that are impossible to meet without the teammate mindset. You change the turnaround time from 7 days to 48 hours. Now, using AI is not an option. It's a necessity.
And the final principle is just pure speed. Move fast. A 45 to 90-day blitz. Why so urgent?
Because gradual rollouts die. They lose momentum. Resistance has time to organize and kill it. Speed creates its own reality. It forces engagement and makes it clear this is not another corporate fad. It is a strategic act of aggression against the old way of working.
That's a powerful playbook for any organization. But what about the specific pain of big, established companies? They're trying to catch this next wave, but they also have to please Wall Street every quarter.
Yeah, that's the ultimate corporate conflict. And that's where Moore's second framework, Zone to Win, is so essential. He says you can't run a legacy business and an innovation venture with the same rules.
So he breaks the company into 4 zones.
Right. First, the performance zone. That's your core business, the cash cow. They just have to make the number every quarter. Then the productivity zone. That's HR, IT, legal. Their job is to reduce risk, maintain process. Those 2 zones are most of the company.
Then you get to the future stuff, the incubation zone.
That's where the crazy new ideas live. It's run like an internal VC. The goal isn't profit, it's learning. They actually take on more risk to go faster.
But the real challenge is the 4th zone, the transformation zone.
That's where big companies die. It's where you take a winning idea from incubation and scale it to become the next core business. And it requires what Moore calls a draconian sacrifice.
You have to steal resources, people, money, attention from the profitable zones.
Exactly. You have to cannibalize your current success to fund your future. And that is a brutal political fight. The CEO has to declare that transformation is job one for everybody.
Not a side project.
No, a life or death bet. And you only get a tiny window. You have to get through that initial dip, the J-curve, and be on an upward trajectory within 8 quarters. 2 years.
2 years is nothing in a big company.
It's an eternity in a blink of an eye. If you lose momentum in those 2 years, Moore says the initiative is irrecoverable.
Yeah.
The old guard reclaims their budget, and you miss the wave.
Which explains why founders like Bezos or Musk can pull this off. They have the authority to make those sacrifices.
Well, companies like Nokia or Sun Microsystems, they have the tech, they have the resources, but they couldn't bring themselves to make that draconian sacrifice. They optimized the present right up until the point they had no future.
So the key lesson for you, the listener, is that success depends entirely on knowing what game you're playing. Is it an early adopter game or a mainstream game? Incubation or transformation? And then having the sheer will to break the old habits.
And this all ties back to Moore's more philosophical work. He basically argues that just focusing on your own P&L, your next promotion, that's a pretty poor true north.
Focusing only on your own quarterly goals is just limiting.
Real fulfillment, he says, comes from being in service to something beyond yourself, transforming an industry, creating value for society, ensuring the company survives for the next generation. That's the only thing that justifies the sacrifice.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to consider. Now that you get the mechanics of the chasm and you have this aggressive playbook for adoption, what are you going to do with it? What worthy cause, what trapped value are you going to align all this new capability to serve?
Because if you have the knowledge and the tools to force a real transformation, you are, by definition, a scarce resource. And a scarce resource should never be wasted on mediocrity or just for a 3-minute game.